Now, if you see the policy, when it came to private, everyone thought same thing the way NTPC got on a silver, if not silver, at least brass or bronze plate, private will get. Suddenly, 2009, government, Ministry of Coal froze all FSAs. They said, I don't have linkage. NTPC came up with smaller power stations. So people are coming up with 3,000 and plus. I don't have coal linkages. Many states said, you can't set up power plants in my premise because it is under the various norms. Some states found this a very good opportunity, so they brought in all investments. Now we have a huge basket of investment in Chhattisgarh because coal is available. Center never prevailed, thinking that if so much of power units are going to come up at Chhattisgarh, how is it going to get evacuated? I think 80% of the power generators who are sitting here will agree that there is huge congestion. Otherwise, why should South market clearing price is at 4 rupees plus, whereas we get in Western grid at 2 rupees 30 plus. Morning, someone was saying that yesterday was the first day when we had all uniform power, 230. But that is only because there is a restriction from west to north. About 3,000 megawatt cannot flow. There is more than about 4,000 megawatt cannot flow from west to south. Western region is full of power. So again, you find that the government policy said, let private investors bring, they will bring money from their own equity, but no one brings their own equity. After all, it's all, as someone was saying, taxpayers' money, banking, other financiers, and whichever foreign investors came, they came only with FDI, with investment. They didn't want to have an FDI. So what happened? The investments all dried up, power stations constructed, unable to generate. Now from 2008, 2009, they said no linkage. They brought in a new feature of policy. No linkage, no PPA. No PPA, no linkage. So this was a vicious circle which most of the developers were running through. So they came with a side angle provision. We will allot coal blocks to you. So the huge run for coal blocks came up. Everyone thought this is my big bread. So I should clinch with 4 hands, if not 2 hands. So people took up with all their own arrangements to get the coal block. Suddenly they found that this is also a bigger issue. As said, it was appearing as we are going to cross over the bridge. Most of the people are still on the other side of the bridge. All coal blocks cancelled. Now where do you state that there has been an equal support or parity for IPPs or the private developers? They came up with a clear visibility that yes, the support given to NTPC or to this extent PGCIL, similar, if not same, at least to some extent will be provided. But with this change of flip-flop policy, linkages gone, coal blocks gone, no PPAs coming, everyone is striving for a competitive power tariffs, everyone wants to go for short-term, day ahead, bilateral. So where will thermal plants survive?
These are high capital intensive industries. So we had come with all the private sectors had come with some hopes, and they had also brought in efficiencies like earlier whatever time of erection and completion was taking, that much time it was taking. Private sectors also came and competed with the public sector. They also brought units in a very short time frame, bringing down the capital cost. But our company almost won 2 prizes last year for the fastest period of commissioning. So there was always a hope that these things will continue for some time, so that there is a certainty. Changes in government policies have sometimes been supportive, but sometimes also we feel that it should be fair to both the public sector and the private sector. So we feel that whenever we are supplying to the distribution utilities which are regulated, those coal that we spend should be FSA coal should be given to us. Similarly, for the on requisition surplus of the public sector companies, they are now being allowed to get into the market, day ahead market. They are getting FSA coal, and it puts the private sector generators in a disadvantage because they will be getting e-auction coal and they will be competing with them. So some fair things will definitely help. Prices are coming down, but we are yet to see when these are getting reflected. Like I think IEX representative said that around 80-90% of the cost is of the distribution companies' power procurement cost. We have to see the reflection of those lower power costs in the retail tariffs.
There is one issue is you said about coal being given under FSA, but still, I mean, they are allowed to sell coal in exchange, NTPC thing. That is, as you know, when the demand is not there, and that is when the normative capacity is achieved. And FSA, as director tariff, you know, is calculated a normative value. So there will be no such, I mean, it really does not make any case, so long as you meet the basic obligations. That is one issue. Secondly, yes, the coal, there was a problem of supply. Now, at the moment, the supply problem is over. There are other issues to be taken care of. There is issue of logistics, issue of reliable access to coal. I mean, that means you cannot, I mean, a power plant when it is running, it should be able to get reliable access to coal. But if you really look at international experience, tell me in which part of the world people talk about linkage. There is nothing called linkage anywhere. There is nothing called FSA anywhere. So ultimately, once the market is surplus, that we are able to meet the demand, and even the imported coal is in OGL, the market will, I am sure, will discover the best price of coal. And I would appeal to my colleagues in the coal subsidiaries and all to ensure the responsiveness to the customer need by ensuring quality, by facilitating logistics, and continuously putting coal in the kind of auction platform, forward auction, and the spot auction, whatever auctions are there, to see that availability remains. And that assurance, if it is there, you know very well, there should not be the problem of the generator. Most of the generators I have met, because I was also in the sector, we know them. So they were telling that feeling a little bit more comfortable. Only thing they are telling the same thing. That is an answer perhaps somebody has to give. If the 42 months period of CE has been brought down by efficiency, the bidding is not yet taking place. So A is, the answer is, when the bidding will take place, that the DISCOMs will enter into agreement, even may not be long term, maybe mid term. B, when the benefit of lower cost, when the power purchase cost predominates the DISCOM budget, will percolate to the customer. I am sure somebody will be very interested in getting this answer.
The IPPs, they came in bulk. They have got a huge investment. They had three problems. One, they had very few have the PPAs. So assured purchasers were very few. They thought the market dynamics will take care. They can, offer the product, and there will be buyers who will take the product. Second, the fuel supply. Fuel supply, earlier there has been a huge shortage. Thanks to the government initiative in the Coal India, a lot of efforts they made. Today the country is surplus with the coal, but there was a time for almost 7 years when the country was continuously in a scarcity of coal. And any amount of import was not able to solve the problem of generators, because import cost has been very, very costly. And regulated market in the power sector has been not offering that particular remuneration for the generators. So as a result, the IPPs had a big difficulty of tying the fuel. And third was the purchasers. Purchasers have been the most smart, and they are the king. They have been very, very careful to buy cheap power. So what exactly happened that this cheap power sourcing on a regulated framework made lot of difficulties for the newly entered IPPs, and even that capacity to pay the bills of the energy purchase versus the fuel purchase was another issue which is coming up in the sector. And these two things put together was creating a problem. And as a result, what exactly happened is that whereas the central sector performed very well, the state sector performed fairly well, IPPs, they had a problem of both sides. One, the financing; second, the fuel; third is the purchaser. All the things put together was a situation which was a pain of transition. So that's the way we should look into it, where there is no need to get alarmed, because these are a bad time. But you see, 13 years, 170,000 megawatt of power capacity addition is too big. The country was not prepared to absorb this particular generation availability and to consume it. And in the meantime, there has been a meltdown of 2008, economy gone into beating, inflation was there. So other problems also put together has a dampening effect. But I hope there are silver lining.
Actually, my view on this is that the government has literally dropped the thermal sector as a hot potato. There is so much thrust on solar and wind that, you know, for any international investor who is coming into India, they don't even get enough sound bites from the government for thermal. People often forget that wind and solar are very good in terms of diversification of sources of power. Yes, they are green, but they are not base load stations. Thermal has that ability to be base load stations which can keep producing power 24/7 through the year. So I think there has been that lack of push from the government side also to encourage investment in the thermal space from the private sector. Another issue that I've been seeing is that the banks have also moved back. So today the banks have an exposure of about 5 trillion rupees in the thermal space, but it's a classic case of once bitten, twice shy. They are unwilling to even support viable projects. The rate of interest is very, very high even for viable projects. So while a solar project operational gets debt at 11%, today viable thermal projects with PPAs are still servicing debt at 12.5, 13%. So it is a bit unfair to, you know, over penalize the thermal sector. I think another issue is that there are no case 1 PPAs that are coming up. So the projects are ready, but there are no means to evacuate this power, and the merchant power tariffs are at an all-time low. They barely cover the variable charges of the variable cost of generation of power. Now, because of this, what is happening is that it is just setting in a kind of a deterrent for future investments to also come in. So what will happen is that in the next 5 to 10 years, India's power mix will be increasingly skewed towards wind and solar. And then that brings us to the larger question of, is enough investment being done, for example, in the transmission networks to be able to evacuate so much of renewable power. So I think it's a pretty complex problem, and there is only a single-minded focus on encouraging renewable. There is an overarching scheme of 24/7 power for all by 2019. But what are the various inputs that will go into achieving that have not been thought through till the last level, is my view.
I totally agree that thermal, as far as financial sector is concerned, today has become quite averse to financing thermal sector, and it would not be exaggeration on my part if I say that you know, today none of the banks or financial institutions are eager to lend to thermal sector, so which is not a very, you know, encouraging sign. One reason for that is, of course, the PPAs not being there. There are 40,000 megawatt of stranded projects which are still there. Last year it was 46, it has come down to 40,000 megawatt. And about 20,000 megawatt probably this year will get added to that capacity. So what will be the scenario, you know, in the power exchange, PPAs not happening. So this is not a very, very comfortable position. In fact, when we have to raise capital, because we do on lending, and when we go to raise capital, people say that what is your you know, asset spread? So they say, okay, renewable. So we ourselves have changed. In fact, 3 years back, our total asset base thermal used to be 50%, and today it has been reduced to 22%. And my on the back end side, my investors are very happy seeing that I am moving towards renewable space. Internationally, all the financial institutions, DFIs have said no to thermal. So everybody is for green energy. Of course, that is also the flavor of the day, and you know, we are all tied to, we are all committed to climate change. But that is, besides that, we also have to, you need the energy security, notwithstanding that India also has to grow at close to double digit, and for that, you know, thermal has to be at the back end to support renewable energy. In fact, as we say, money is a coward. It chases where, you know, it goes to place where the risk is lowest. So they find that the risk is lowest in renewable. So according to the risk, it also gets priced. And renewable, you can raise capital at much lower rates, and every day it is falling. renewable used to get same pricing as thermal 3 years back. Today, it gets pricing at 30% cheaper. So, and thermal, of course, first of all, the bankers are not ready. Whatever this, money which is going into thermal sector is the existing commitment which the lenders have made to the thermal power project. And even that, because, the recent RBI policy has been such that, it has been trying to, one way trying to, bring more discipline to the system. The regulations are such that, the equity has to be brought by the promoter along with the debt, pro rata has to be brought. So, and promoters have reached that level since they can't get investors from outside. They are not able to raise capital because nobody wants to put money in thermal. So it's a catch-22 situation. And unless the PPAs are visible or unless, the power market becomes, which is not operating at variable cost level kind of a thing, it would be very, very challenging to get future investment. What to talk about, it will be very challenging to get investment for existing projects, what to talk about investment in future projects. If you look at bank statements, last year financial results, NPA have really galloped. And one of the significant contributors to NPA is power sector, And in fact, the bigger challenge is that this year also, if issues like this don't get resolved, like getting additional equity for standard projects, getting PPAs in place, I'm afraid this would add to the bank's number.
Someone was saying that we are moving toward, now the same thing is going to happen. You will see 10 years down, maybe some other conclave in some other state, people will be talking that government came in with such a big policy of solar, renewable, and then we'll find that these are all peaking stations. How do we fulfill the base load stations? See, the growth, we say 7.5%, 8%. Some states, it's growing at almost 10 to 11%. But where will they end? They can't keep on increasing. They will have to stabilize. So I still feel that the impetus which was being given to thermal with a clear insight that central government does not have funds to fund was brought in for the private. The site given to private was, you will also be able to, if not lead, but at least compete with the state and center, but they are nowhere in the race. Now the issue is being talked about, let's scrap down the old low efficiency, low heat rate performing units and bring in higher supercritical units. There's a new, view or thought being looked into by central government. They are thinking of passing on those linkages to high performance or high efficient generating stations. Now there is a rule that people should come only with supercritical. So idea is that there should be some visibility. For 10 years you should show the path for any investor, especially these being long gestation, huge investment projects. You can't see returns at the end of 5th or 6th year. People come here for establishing a plan to give life for 25 years. And the policies change every 5 years. So you can't survive in this type of world and still say, I will make a PLF of 75% or I will give power at 2 rupees 20 paise.
No, I think we had all been talking about it. There has to be a market. So there has to be PEEP-A. There has to be rational tariff. The DISCOMs will have to have the capacity to afford the power purchase and distribute power so that the per capita consumption goes up. B, the generators consequently should be able to discover a proactive market. C, notwithstanding whatever we say, renewable is going to come. It has come in Germany. 15th May 2016, Germany gave money to people who consume power. It's going to come. 50%, 15th, another 15th, I think May 2012, more than 50% of the 15-minute cycle power demand was met by solar. The thinkers of tomorrow's economics had been talking about people like us believing in Kodak principle, where digital has taken over. That means that slowly the technology goes into area where you don't have the red horse concept. That means where you go, where the incremental availability is at the lowest cost. Whereas in resource based, be it coal based, be it gas based, be it oil based, be it any fuel based, there will be a marginal revenue will be associated with marginal cost. And that marginal cost, if it becomes very, very low, that is only an O&M of a plant, that power will tend to get advantage unless we really sit together and create a vibrant market. Because all said and done, next door there is a bigger country which power requirement per capita has crossed 4,500 kWh per capita per person. And we are saying 1,000, and there is a hell of a lot difference between one state's figure and another state's figure. I told in the morning also, distribution side if we are strengthening, where there is a customer intervention, none of us is a customer intervention. My customers are generators, generators customers are DISCOM, and DISCOM's customers are people, consumers, under section 42 of the Electricity Act. So unless we bring a seamless cycle, create a market, understand where in perspective we will stand, then maybe as he rightly pointed out in a very passionate kind of presentation, maybe after 10 years, we will be thinking about exactly the way other powers, but other powers have an advantage. You very well know when you buy that capital cost, what is going to be that power cost after 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. Other things are not so certain. And that's a very sobering thought.
I'd also like to talk on merchant power tariff. It is driven by demand and supply. So does prevailing merchant tariffs inspire private confidence?
See, merchant power is also again a derivative of the complete scenario. How do we operate? Now, as we understand, coal, the Ministry of Coal determines that any generating station will get to the extent of meeting only 15% of merchant tariff. So if we take in Colossus all the generating stations who does not have full PPAs and who can only generate 15% merchant, then it will be a win-win situation for both DISCOMs as well as the generating companies. But now the situation, the condition is not like that. Because there are stalled projects, they are unable to meet, and they have some liabilities to fulfill, both to their lenders as well as to other fuel suppliers. They operate, and they operate with merchant tariff at far below the variable cost. Now, another feature which impairs these operators in Chhattisgarh, see, you don't have, again, same yardstick to be measured. Now, some states levy some additional duty and tariff. For example, in Chhattisgarh, most of the private developers are laden with the electricity duty. Now, electricity duty is almost about 11 paise per unit, that is at the final tariff. Whereas out of 28, 26, 27 states, there are only 6 states which are levying at the minimum of 5 paise. Now, these states, being power surplus, having called in for so much of investment, and the investors having put in money, now no coal, no PPA, if they want to run, they also have to meet this duty. So what I feel is, it's not that only merchant tariff, it's a plain vanilla situation in which you see exchange and you start selling. Even in bilateral, when you sell, suppose you are selling intra-state or intra-region, there are other POC charges which you have to ensure that you fulfill. So these things don't permit for a station with only quantity of 15% coal availability to fulfill that merchant tariff. So very tight rope walk. Every day, every hour of his operation, he has to be on constant move, ensuring that he doesn't make excess losses. Losses he will surely make. On merchant tariff, you can't survive in the present scenario. But how to overcome this minimal losses?
In fact, I'd like to add something here. This takes me back a few years, maybe 5-6 years back, when the merchant tariffs were very high, and we had taken a thermal investment opportunity to a Japanese investor. And at that time, that project didn't have PPA like a lot of projects of that vintage. That project was under construction. And the Japanese investor just summed up the investment thesis in one line. He said that I understand India is a merchant market because the per capita consumption is very low. There are huge sections of population that are unserviced. So as long as you are making a power plant, the power will sell. That was the investment thesis on the basis of which a lot of players made a lot of investment. But today, if you see the merchant tariff, it is just 2 rupees 30 paise. Now, the basic contradiction in this whole thesis is that CEA takes out a report saying that India is power surplus. You go through the report and you understand that India is power surplus only based on the, the demand that is stated by the DISCOMs. That power surplus does not consider power backdowns. It does not consider people who do not have access to electricity. So that's where the basic dichotomy is, that we are power surplus and yet we have so much of unmet demand, and that's where a lot of this investment thesis is proving wrong.
If you see the concept of merchant power versus the assured power, the reform basically revolved around the three aspects. One, there should be a transparent and fair play. Two, technology upgradation. And third, the cheapest power availability. And all three parameters were taken in the Act 2003, which opened the market. What exactly has been thought by the reformers was that we are going towards the model adopted in European or the American market, where buyer has got a choice of supplier. That means the one sitting in Delhi can choose a power from Kerala also, and vice versa, Bengal can choose power from Bihar, depending upon the quality and the quantity available at the right price, acceptable to him. What exactly happened in our country is that we are in a mixed mode, where there is a big regulation which says that every aspect of power generation is regulated. The operators are required to operate in a particular norm and generate the power. Even the price of power is defined, more or less. In case of state sector, it is defined fully. In case of central sector, it is normative. In this thing, the competition between the state versus central versus the IPP has become too intense, and the IPPs, they find that the buyer aspiration to get the cheapest power is not being fulfilled by them for three reasons. One, the PPAs are not there. Two, the fuel is a problem for them because they have not tied up the complete fuel with them. And third, the risk taking was too high, besides the cost of financing the project. As a result, the lot of dissatisfaction is happening, and that is leading to NPA. What we talk of power exchange tariff, it is most unreliable to my understanding.
Now government has brought in a regulation that all your norms of both emission, SOx and NOx, as well as dust, will all have to be almost half of what you were earlier doing. So most of these power plants, including Behemoth, NTPC, are now struggling how to meet. Now earlier, why people are going for import coal? Two reasons. One was the policy did not permit them to get full coal. Coal India started dictating terms that we will be able to meet only 65% of your actual FSA. Reasons known, production was less, produced coal was of 3 grades, 4 grades poorer quality, and people are not willing to pay. I mean, the power developers were not willing to pay the price notified by Coal India for that inferior coal. And they found that imported coal was able to compete, and imported coal blending was possible for them, and they were able to meet the norms. Regulators also supported for those change in law because Coal India themselves said, I can't give you more than 65%. So the PPA, the change in law clause permitted them for billing appropriately. Suddenly imported coal prices started increasing hugely. At the same time, contrary to everyone's imagination, Coal India's production increased in leaps and bounds. Now we are at a crossroad, whether we should go for imported coal vis-a-vis surplus coal availability of Coal India. But availing coal from Ministry of Coal India has always got a rider, because the new policy state that you should not transport coal more than 34% ash or beyond 500 kilometers. Now Coal India says, I don't have so much of sufficient washery capacity, so you take this coal, wash to the best extent possible and meet those norms. So we are at a, as I said, on a crossroad. How, if I have to meet this ash content firing capacity, obviously I will have to import coal. Even though it may be costly, right at my backyard there will be sufficient coal available, but because of these quality norms being now very stringently stipulated, I think most of us will again have to switch over to blending with imported coal. And not otherwise have washeries set up at the Coal India premises or close to the Coal India premises and take this coal.
See, this is a commercial management. Whatever fuel is produced by the Coal India is consumed by generator, generate power, given to DISCOM, they distribute the power to the user sector, to the common people, and the billing and realization. The whole forenoon sector was devoted to this, basically smart metering, realization, billing efficiency and all that one. If everybody functions very smoothly, the whole chain works nicely. It is not a, some sort of a saying that because I am not getting cheaper coal, we are not able to produce cheaper power. And the Coal India has got a problem of outstanding. So what my senior told regarding this coal not getting the money is a real truth. And so is the case of generators. Most of the generators are not getting their dues from the distribution sector. And same thing with the distribution sector, they are not getting money from the users. So this is a vicious circle we are operating. And still we want to become efficient. That issue is more complex. The entire financial management system is totally in need of reform. And the Uday scheme came, one of the way to reform. The restructuring of loan for the power developers came. All these things are just to infuse some sort of financial discipline so that the users who are taking the power should start paying promptly in time to distribution companies and the money will flow. So unless the reversible system works nicely, no system can operate.
My biggest fear on Uday is that Uday could be just another FRP. India has seen 2 FRPs in the past. Uday could be just the 3rd FRP. The real test of whether this is working or not will be that are the AT&C losses really reduced? Do we really improve the system and increase tariffs? So I would have been very happy if as a part of the Uday scheme, the government said that yes, we are allowing you to issue bonds at 2% plus base rate. But by the way, if you don't reduce the losses, then you will have to pay 5% penal interest after 3 years. That would have ensured that the FRP or Uday would have worked. But right now, I don't have the confidence that this FRP will be very different from the other 2 FRPs, unless there is genuine effort made to reduce AT&C losses and ensure that the tariff is actually reflective of the cost of power.
At present, we are operating around 58,000 megawatt inter-regional capacity grid, national grid. So I don't think there is any congestion in the transmission sector. And further, we are also developing the more transmission networks from one region to another region, like this Chapakur Kshetra. We are going to commission shortly, likely to be in October, I think, October solar. And the capacity is around 3,000 megawatt presently. And it will be further strengthened to 6,000 megawatt after 1 year. And another HVDC link, this Raigarh Pugaluru, which is directly going power to the southern states, Tamil Nadu and Kerala. and that will also 6,000 megawatt capacity we are going to add. And next, shortly we are going to commission the Raipur-Wardha line, and this Aurangabad, Boisar, Aurangabad, Patge, these will further strengthen the system. And further, we are also developing the green power corridor, which will cater the solar energy generations in the particularly Gujarat and Rajasthan area. So you have seen in the past 9 months, that this power availability is increased due to our transmission network, strong transmission network. After commissioning of this Aurangabad-Solapur line, this power, you can say cheaper power now available to southern region, and you will see in the Vidyut Prabha also that the power is available in the power station at the rate of 2 rupees 50 paisa. Earlier it was around 10 to 11 rupees, which is possible due to this transmission, strong transmission network.
Also about the role of private players in transmission sector, how do you see the role? Till now, private players are mainly working for some dedicated lines and not major grid projects. So in future,
All transmission line presently after this January 11, it is coming through TBC only. Even Power Grid also participating in TBCB, and they are also winning the projects under TBCB, and Power Grid also winning. Like around 40% TBC projects Power Grid has won, and other players also won, and they are doing well. There is no problem in the transmission sector through private.
I think transmission is generally an area of interest for international investors. So generally when we meet investors, they are curious about investment in transmission. But the reason why a lot of financial investors have not invested in transmission is that there are very few opportunities. So, unlike in renewable where you can actually easily list down 20 people who would have cut large checks in the last 6 months, unfortunately in transmission there are very few cases of financial investment only because of want of opportunities. So I think when in the recent past the government has started coming up with BOT projects for transmission, and now that the private sector is building up some scale, we will see more investments. Oftentimes, a lot of our private sector clients say that, we are not able to compete against PGCIL because, they are the big boss in this space. But hopefully the industry will gradually have more and more private sector players investing, because inherently the risks are low. It is a fixed ROE, annuity type of a model. Of course, right of way is an issue, but with experience, I think new private players in transmission can handle it. Of course, in areas like coal, anyway, in thermal, anyway, private sector is well equipped with handling ROW issues.
Both technology has helped PGCIL, and now we have the highest reach transmission capacities, 765, 800 kV. But the speed at which these are to be completed also plays an important role. Because again, it's a vicious circle. We may come back, PPA, FSA, coal. See, in the case of transmission stations, transmission projects, the thermal power plants are tied up. Now they sign a bulk power purchase agreement with them with some timelines, expecting that, keeping that timeline, if in case a viable PPA comes, they will be able to sign or apply for open access. Earlier there was provisions of force majeure if power is not supplied. Now looking into the delay in most of this high energy transmission, that particular clause has been removed from case 1 PPA. Now as and when the open access is available, you can start supplying. So how do we run this race? That power plants want to come first, transmissions are delayed, open access is further delayed, PPA is also delayed. So somewhere or other we have to close this loop. So with the technology advancement and so much of investment coming up, as she was also saying, there are foreign investors interested, there are private investors also keen to participate in the Government of India's new policy of transmission projects. Because transmission also has to come up at least well in time. I remember only in my experience of 30 years, the only link which gets delayed in a power project execution is availability of railway siding. Because railways operate on a different frame. They never look into that 36 months or 40 months of a project. Because for them, DPR itself starts after 24 months of. So that was the only missing link where people were not provided with this sufficient coal. But transmission can't be left behind. Transmission should work hand in hand with the thermal power projects or UMPP's establishment. I mean, the timeline should be same because again, government investment, government follow-up, so it can't be delayed. Having signed BPTA and then you wait for 1.5 years because the transmission network is not fulfilled, who is to be blamed? How is it a private investor and with all this, I mean, bankers and lenders feeding in, how can they be sorted out?
But then, whatever definition we have of having surplus of deficit, but today we have surplus capacity built up in India. In fact, challenge is not so much of, as of now, challenge is not so much of adding capacity, but challenge is of whatever capacity which we have built, that should be optimally utilized. Linked with that, of course, is transmission capacity, but then transmission capacity, of course, there are pitfalls and issues, but it has moved quite a bit. In last 5-6 years itself, Power Grid, I just heard 50,000 megawatt is now available. It is 58,000, and about 5-6 years back, it used to be 13,000 megawatt. So we have come a long way, and that is why you have uniform kind of power exchange rates prevailing in the country. Also, it's very important that now transmission sector has been made free to private sector, and private sector is very keenly looking at it. The good part of transmission is that at least at the interstate grid level, we have, we have a pool price payment system. I wish it was there for thermal, because then everybody would get paid and the money would come to a common kitty. Here, Power Grid money and the IPTC money comes to a common kitty and gets distributed. So every investor is keen to put money in transmission sector. Something like that could also be thought on generation side. It would be a loud thinking, but nevertheless, it could be looked at.
Transmission, particularly, there is a problem of ROW, right of way, basically. We want to complete in the shortest time, but we are not able to complete due to the severe ROW because of the land belongs to farmers. We are not purchasing the lands. And we are, just as per the Electricity Act, Telegraph Act, we are empowered to lay the transmission line on any fields, any farmers. So now this Government of India has given one guideline for the partial compensation for the land, farmers' land, like this 85% of the land cost for the tower floating area and 15% for the corridor area. But the cost which farmers are expecting, they are expecting very high. But the cost which revenue authorities are assessing, that is coming very less. So there is gap between the expectation and the actual assessment. So that's also a problem in the transmission corridor. Second problem is coming this coal block. When we lay the transmission line and do something work, later on it is found that there is some coal block allotted to some developers. And they come there to change your route, you shift your line later on. It is also coming a problem for the transmission line sector. And third is the forest killness. Forest, naturally, there is not much problem. But this Forest Right Act, I think for the linear project, there should not be a FRA Act applicable to this transmission sector. So if it is exempted, then I think it will be better for the transmission sector to get the forest killness well in time.
PGCIL did a wonderful job in Northeast. I don't know. I mean, people may not be knowing. They may know about their own company. They may not know the overall. PGCIL did a fantastic job in Northeast. As a result, they are stranded with complete transmission capacity without the generator. That also happens. I mean, across the world it happens. And when there was a very interesting question that was raised, the transmission, I mean, because he is representing CTU and nobody is there from STU. One of the major problems is the evacuation of the renewable power. Rajasthan has one policy, Gujarat has one policy, Andhra has one policy, Tamil Nadu has one policy. And then people fight to get close to a substation where evacuation is still available. You are all aware. The generators are all aware. So there is a need to lay down a clear policy for that. One of the advantages in getting investment in transmission sector will be the pooling of money. That means there is a guarantee of money availability through a distribution formula. It is not that the PGCIL will run away with the money or X or ARP will run away with the money. It will be very difficult to bring it in the generator because they are dominated. PPA, FSA, they are bilateral agreements. Whereas this distribution formula, is again an agreement which is inbuilt when the privatization took place. I am fairly confident that the transmission area, if this land acquisition and right-of-way issues are sorted out, because you see the Telegraph Act, which was a very antiquated British Act, it was integrated as a schedule in the Electricity Act. That created a lot of problem, but now some solutions are on the anvil. The generation, yes, so far as fuel availability is concerned, there is auction going on. Any generator can bid for it. And there is no need to import coal because there is better quality coal available, which can be blended, which is of the same quality from the coal is imported. And outside coal may not contain fly ash, they have high moisture, they have also sulfur. They have ecological issues that cannot be hidden under the carpet. But it is very, very important, as I repeatedly say, for the generator to survive, for the transmission company to offer, they offer availability of transmission. I mean, whether power goes or not, they will offer availability of transmission. Generator is available, provided the fuel is there. But as was rightly pointed out by Mr. Agarwal, there has to be purchaser. Somebody has to purchase the power. And that's the challenge today. And we all hope that Uday scheme kicking in, of course. The Ernst & Young, I mean, they have a view that, I mean, unless, I also agree, if AT&C does not come now, which was also the objective of, you recall, RAPD, RP2, where is the incremental income going to come from? The cycle, how are you going to get out of the cycle? And then if I don't have money, then how do I invest in capex? If I don't invest in capex, how do I reduce the loss? The entire problem is regulators had been laying the efficiency at the door of the DISCOM without providing the money for their capex, because as somebody said, it is a fiercely regulated sector. It is a fiercely regulated sector. And although generators theoretically are not within regulation, they come within regulation because of the PPA obligations. So perhaps we'll have to have good faith in the forum of regulators, good faith in the directional abilities of the state government, because most of the issues will be coming under Section 108, Section 11, and not under Section 107. And we'll have to understand that efficient fuel mechanism will have to be there. Efficient, cost-effective fuel production will have to be there. If the DISCOMs do well, generator will do well. Only if the generator and DISCOM, which in India, till now, I mean, the DISCOMs may have only distribution utility, but here they have the trading license also. If distribution companies do well, generator companies will do well. Inter-allied transmission companies will have the incentive to deliver. That is my view of the thing.
So with these comments, I'd like to thank all the panelists and delegates for joining us here for this discussion. Thank you very much.